Most people think the Costco meal deal is the $1.50 hot dog, but they're wrong. The real deal, the one that keeps the retail giant's $240 billion ecosystem humming, is actually free. But here's the catch. It's never actually free. I've spent over a decade as a consumer behavior strategist, analyzing the psychological triggers that big box retailers use to separate you from your paycheck. I've seen how a single cube of mild cheddar can trigger a reciprocity loop that forces your brain to buy a 3-pound block you didn't even want. We're told these samples are a generous perk of our $60 membership. In reality, they are a precision-engineered gauntlet designed to spike dopamine and bypass your rational spending centers. I wanted to know if a human being could actually subvert this system. Is it physically possible and socially survivable to live off nothing but these tiny paper cups for a full 24-hour cycle without losing your mind or your dignity? I'm talking about zero outside calories. No breakfast at home, no coffee, and definitely no $1.50 hot dog safety net at the end. The stakes are higher than you'd think. Beyond the obvious risk of a massive sodium crash, there's a logistical nightmare at play. Costco isn't a buffet, it's a business. The vendors are on a schedule, the inventory rotates, and the social pressure to buy or move on is immense. I know it sounds like a cheap challenge, but stick with me, because what I discovered about the way we consume food and marketing in these aisles changed how I look at my grocery cart forever. If you've ever walked into Costco for milk and walked out with a $400 bill and a kayak, you're going to want to see how this internal war between my stomach and their strategy played out. Hit that subscribe button, because we're about to deconstruct the psychology of the free sample in a way that'll save you thousands on your next run. It all started at 10:07 a.m. on a Tuesday. The doors had just swung open, my stomach was already growling, and I realized within 5 minutes that I had made a massive tactical error. The grazing schedule isn't what it used to be. You see, most people assume the food is always flowing, but there's a dark period, a dead zone where the air fryers are cold and the toothpicks are nowhere to be found. And that was just the first hurdle. By 1:15 p.m., the novelty had officially worn off. You see, there's a biological reason why you feel a sudden, uncontrollable urge to buy a 48-pack of frozen taquitos after one bite. It's called sensory-specific satiety. In a normal meal, your brain gets a mix of flavors that eventually tells you to stop eating. But in the Costco aisles, you're getting microdoses of extreme salt, sugar, and fat every 6 minutes. It's a chemical roller coaster that actually makes you hungrier than when you walked in. I was 3 hours in, and I had already hit the sample slump. This is the dead zone where the morning shift of vendors swaps out. The air fryers go quiet. The stainless steel trays are empty. I was standing in the middle of the supplement aisle, staring at an empty cup that once held a single gummy vitamin, wondering if this was the peak of my nutritional intake for the day. But it gets worse. The psychological pressure is the real killer here. Every time a vendor, usually a sweet, retired person named Gladys, hands you a toasted ravioli, a social contract is signed. It's the rule of reciprocation. Your brain feels in subconscious debt. I found myself making intense eye contact, nodding enthusiastically about the crispness of a cracker I had no intention of buying, just to justify my existence in their line. I was essentially performing for my food. Now, you might be asking, why not just go back for seconds? Because there is an unwritten social law in these warehouses. 1 sample is a curiosity. 2 is a compliment. 3 is a declaration of war. I tried the loop-around method, changing my hat and walking the perimeter to approach the pot sticker station from the opposite side. It didn't work. Gladys saw right through the disguise. Back for more, dear? She asked, her smile missing her eyes. I felt the sweat start. This wasn't just about calories anymore. It was about the sheer willpower to exist in a space designed to extract money while I was only extracting snacks. I'd spent 15 years studying how these layouts are built to confuse your internal GPS. The decompression zone at the entrance, the bunker staples in the back. It's all meant to keep you walking. And the more you walk, the more samples you see, and the more likely you are to break. By 4:00 p.m., my sodium levels were screaming. I had consumed 3 crackers, a sliver of rotisserie chicken, a sip of an organic energy drink, and 4 grapes. I was full, but I was starving. The real test, however, wasn't the hunger. It was the closing time crunch. As the lights dimmed and the vendors started packing up their toothpicks, I realized I hadn't secured enough fuel to make it through the night. Here's the secret they don't tell you. The best samples, the high-ticket items like steak bites and premium cheeses, only come out when the foot traffic is at its peak. As the crowd thinned, so did my options. I was left staring at a tray of dried seaweed snacks, realizing that the next 12 hours were going to be a very long, very salty journey into the dark. By 9:00 p.m., the lights finally cut to half power. The hum of the industrial refrigerators became a deafening roar in the silence. I was the last person in the parking lot, and the midnight wall was hitting me like a freight train. Here's the physiological reality that no one tells you about surviving on samples. Your body doesn't treat them like food. It treats them like a series of false alarms. Every time I swallowed a 20-calorie square of pizza, my insulin spiked, expecting a full meal. When that meal never arrived, my blood sugar crashed harder than a pallet of bulk flour. I wasn't just hungry. I was entering a state of metabolic confusion. I spent the next 8 hours at home, staring at my pantry like a man possessed. The irony? My kitchen was stocked with Costco hauls from previous months. But the rules were absolute. If it didn't come off a red-clothed demo table in the last 24 hours, it didn't exist. I woke up at 7:00 a.m. with a sodium hangover. My fingers were swollen, my head was pounding, and my mouth felt like I'd spent the night licking a salt block. I headed back for the final stretch, the morning rush. But here's where the investigation took a dark turn. When I walked back through those sliding glass doors at 10:00 a.m. to finish the cycle, the smell of the rotisserie chickens didn't smell like dinner anymore. It smelled like a trap. In my years analyzing consumer psychology, I've seen how loss leaders work, but experiencing it as your sole source of life is different. You realize that the entire warehouse is a giant Skinner box. We are the lab rats, and the samples are the pellets. I stepped onto the scale for the final weigh-in. Despite consuming what felt like 1,000 tiny bites, I had actually lost 2 pounds. But don't let that fool you into thinking this is a new diet fad. My body felt like it was running on fumes and preservatives. The final tally? Total samples consumed: 42 total calories, approximately 100, half of what I need. Total sodium, over 4,000 mg, nearly double the daily limit. Total cost, $0. 0 dignity lost, immeasurable. The free sample isn't a gift. It's a sensory bribe. It's designed to keep you in the store longer, because every extra minute you spend in those aisles costs you an average of $2 in unplanned purchases. By hunting for free food, I was actually the most expensive type of customer Costco has, until they break you. So, did I survive? Physically, yes. But I'll never look at a toothpick the same way again. Next time you're reaching for that little paper cup, ask yourself, are you eating because you're hungry, or because Gladys just triggered a debt in your brain that's going to cost you $40 at the checkout? Now that you know how this sample trap works, do you want to see the 7 psychological traps Costco uses to make you spend $400 every trip so you can finally beat the house?